Welcome. My name is Andrea Maddalena. I'm an architect and art historian, and I would like to introduce you to my new theories about the Dutch painter Johannes Vermeer. This first video goes about his color theory. Johannes Vermeer's paintings are famous for depicting scenes suspended in silence and shrouded in a light which is almost metaphysical. The impressive pictorial technique and a profound sense of harmony of the composition are essential factors behind these exceptional results. The intention of this video is 1. To introduce a new perspective about the work of Vermeer, 2. To connect his work to another famous painter, 3. Is an invitation for art historians and experts to proceed exploring further in this direction. I think I've gathered enough information to be able to conclude that Vermeer uses the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, in all their gradations and variations, along with black and white. And Vermeer seems to apply this with consistency through his entire work, maybe with exception of his early works. So far as I'm aware, this conclusion has not been drawn by anyone before. Vincent van Gogh, in one of his letters to his colleague Emile Bernard, and speaking about the painting Woman Reading a Letter, notices that Vermeer's color palette is based on blue, lemon yellow, pearl grey, black and white, which sounds very close to the primary color set. Marcel Proust, in his masterpiece In Search of Lost Time, lets his main character speak with words of admiration about the painting View of Delft, underlining how the composition is fundamentally based on the colors blue, pink and yellow, basically closest to the three primary colors. In my opinion, both Van Gogh and Proust came very close to Vermeer's true intentions. A slight shift in their perspective allows me to give shape to my own theory. An analysis, even approximate, of Vermeer's entire repertoire reveals the intriguing aspect of the almost total absence of the color green. I relate this approach to the work of another Dutch artist, Piet Mondrian. 250 years separates the two artists, and yet Mondrian's work has been fundamental for me to deeply understand the work of Johannes Vermeer. Since his very first works, Mondrian, pioneer of the abstract art movement, masters the classics drawing techniques with a strong sense of realism, beautifully reproducing reality in its visual aspects. But Mondrian is not satisfied with it. He feels the need to represent reality in its true essence, that is not how it appears to our eyes, but in a way which requires a deeper, intuitive way of understanding and demands a pure vision. Mondrian starts decomposing reality and eliminating any superfluous or unnecessary elements in search of the representation of the true essence of things. This leads to compositions made of rectangular surfaces, orthogonal lines, and based on the three primary colors, blue, yellow and red, plus black and white. Color, he says, has to become autonomous from form and stand on its own. Green is the result of the combination between blue and yellow, so is not essential anymore. Nature has always inspired me, he says, Mondrian. Green is a special color I've banned from my work and my studio. So green radically disappears from Mondrian's canvases. The point is that the absence of green seems to appear in Vermeer's work as well. Apart from exceptions, a few bucolic landscapes on a painting within a painting or in the inside of the music instrument, the virginal, or occasionally on the painting, the allegory of faith, here and there in some shading effects of interior walls. But then green in Vermeer is simply not used. In order to demonstrate this from a sufficiently scientific point of view and not only from the simple visual impressions, I applied the color analysis tools of a well-known photo editing program to any of the best images of Vermeer's painting downloaded from the internet, to highlight the color of each selected portion of my choice. The result, in acceptable approximation, shows that the entire Vermeer work is based on the three primary colors, blue, yellow and red, along with white and black. Now, my personal analysis of Vermeer's painting starts from this new perspective of keeping color autonomous from form, as Mondrian himself suggests. Let's start with the color blue. In several of Vermeer's paintings, the color blue is an ultramarine blue. I always wondered, why did Vermeer insist so much on the use of ultramarine blue, by definition the most expensive color of all, even in moments of not easy financial situations for his family? There has never been a real answer to this question so far. And yet, Vermeer's extensive use of ultramarine blue is evident. Furthermore, affinities in the use of colors between Vermeer and the painter Pieter de Hoek exist. Pieter de Hoek moved to Delft at Vermeer's time. No official evidence of their contact or collaborations exists, but yet some aspects of their work are so evident that it's impossible to think that these two persons couldn't have ever contact with each other. Let's look at the milkmaid, and let's look at the Hoek's courtyard with a man smoking and a woman drinking. The woman's clothes over the skirt of the dress is blue. The same similarities are in Vermeer's woman holding a balance and the Hoek's interior with a woman weighing gold coin. We see blue on the jacket and we see red-orange on the dress, perfectly matching in both paintings. So this makes think about the existence of a common intent. Not less interesting is to discover that in several paintings, Vermeer seems to apply the same blue and ultramarine blue exactly for the same kind of clothes. Many of these characters involved are engaged in an action of service towards something or someone else. Intuitively, the brilliance of the color could be directly proportional to the profuse conviction in the action. In other paintings, blue is rather used by Vermeer in a lighter shade and less vivid color, as if to underline a lesser conviction of degree of intention. Moreover, I also mentioned the color blue of the bedroom jacket of the astronomer and the geographer. And I also mentioned the wine plant that climbs to the left of the little street, because since ancient times the vine plant is a symbol of marriage, fidelity and love. So once again, an intention. I therefore propose to consider Vermeer's blue as a way to express the intensity and purity of an intention, regardless of form. Now let's look at the color yellow. According to the experts Agnese Antonini and Arthur K. Wheelock Jr. about the painting The Lace Maker, the yellow, they say, is to be psychologically associated with the concept of activity. And I noticed that this aspect can also be found in several of Vermeer's paintings, where yellow is clearly linked with a person engaged in an action or playing the main role in the scene. The yellow jacket with the ermine fur, ermine is symbol of proud purity, is one of the objects owned by the Vermeer's family, returning more often in Vermeer's work. Again, the color seems to assume a precise role regardless of form. Therefore, it becomes natural for me to associate the yellow color in Vermeer's work to the concept of action. And now let's look at the color red. The color red seems to be involved every time whenever emotions are involved. May this be sexual attraction, falling in love, or spiritual elevation. The very interesting yellow, blue, red sequence needs to be seen immediately. It's identical on the music lesson and on the milkmaid. All the above examples, back to the color red, make it clear that Vermeer's red can indeed be associated with the concept of love, emotional involvement. Love of emotional involvement. But now we have a new perspective, because finally it's possible for me to create a three-color code where each primary color plays an autonomous role in reference to the persons on the scenes, and where each intensity and brilliance is proportional to the intensity of the person's quality. Blue, clear, pure intention, intent, service. Yellow, action, carrying out, main role in the scene. Red, love, emotion, passion, emotional involvement, carnal pleasure, spiritual elevation. In other words, frequencies of colors and frequencies of the human soul. This gives us the opportunity to analyze any Vermeer's painting from a new point of view. An example, Officer and Laughing Girl. The soldier in red is seen from behind and feels attraction to the girl. The girl in yellow leads the conversation. The light blue dress betrays some uncertainty or insecurity in her intentions, as previously indicated, a less vivid color as if to underline a lesser conviction of degree of intention. Accentuated by the glass, by her more or less unconsciously held a separation element from the man, but she seems amused. The three primary colors are homogeneously distributed in the composition, and therefore there is harmony in the scene. That means both characters are having a fine moment together. Example number 2, woman with a water jug. The woman is dressed in intense ultramarine blue, which denotes dedication, pure intentions of service. On her dress, also yellow can be found, indicating action. On her figure, there is no trace of red, but red is on the carpet, on the table, harmonizing the entire composition chromatically. So we find here harmony of intention and harmony of action in an overall balance which suggests inner serenity and calm in the scene, underlined by the beautiful, clear and diffuse light from the window. Example 3. The milkmaid. 1. She's seen from an observation point from the bottom up, which makes her so visible and heroic. 2. We saw it before, a splendid sequence of yellow, blue, and red. That means action, crystal clear intention, and emotional involvement. Moreover, the emotional aspect accentuated by the small header on the floor needs to be seen, symbol of a lover's desire for love and fidelity, and subtly underlined by the little cupids on the tiles below, not necessarily referring to romantic love, but here rather to a passion or sincere commitment. And again, anything is further accentuated by the clear lights in the room, her beautiful posture, physical strength, concentration in action. Not surprisingly, through history, the milkmaid expressing good values of simplicity, sobriety, and represented by, let's say, and convinced dedication to essential nourishment represented by milk and bread, so very important food, has repeatedly been associated with Holland. Example number 4, the music lesson. Here, Vermeer's compositional and chromatic harmony reached the highest levels. 1. All primary colors plus white and black are equally distributed in the scene. 2. The two characters connected to each other are connected to each other in several ways. A. Through the musical experience, clearly, between the two of them. B. Their chromatism can be noticed because we have the male figure that is carefully following the girl's exercise as the color black and white. While on the girl, we saw it also before, we find the 3 primary colors, yellow, blue, red, in sequence, once again, as in the milkmaid. So in other words, action, intention, and emotion are harmoniously aligned. Perhaps a third link between the two characters is expressed by the partially visible painting on the right called the Roman Charity, which leads to the possibility that it could be a relationship father-daughter, ? Perspective and chromatic balance hovers over the entire scene. This denotes that the two characters are in a state of full harmony, further underlined by the presence of both musical instruments, the virginal and the viola da gamba, symbolizing loving harmony between man and woman, even despite a physical distance. Furthermore, any of Vermeer's work where music is performed together by several persons seems to contain, so I'm thinking also about the concert, for example, seems to contain a special compositional and chromatic balance. Looking at the music lesson, this balance is accompanied by a strong presence of patterns and orthogonal lines on the floor, on the window frames, on the paintings on the wall, on the virginal, on the chairs against the wall. This intuitively, in its totality, makes one think of the colors, the patterns, and the compositional balance of Mondrian's, at least this is what happens to me, of Mondrian's masterpiece, Victory Boogie Woogie. These patterns will be further explored in my forthcoming second article dedicated to Vermeer. Again, one example, it's one of his earliest works, Christ in the House of Martha and Mary. One of Vermeer's earliest works, the two sisters Martha and Mary are respectively action and contemplation. And although other painters traditionally give a clear preference to Mary contemplating and adoring Jesus, in Vermeer's painting, Mary and Martha are equally important in the presence of Jesus, and the 3 characters are all at the same level of importance in the compositional pyramid composed of the 3 figures. Martha, the action, she serves the bread, very important food, is yellow. Mary, the contemplation and emotional involvement is red. Jesus, the pure intention is blue. This can be seen as a confirmation of the validity of the 3 primary colors in Vermeer's work, eventually applied by the artist since his early paintings, which is very interesting for me. Looking at Vermeer's work from this new perspective, we can draw important conclusions. Colors and objects seem to assume a wider and deeper role in every scene. On the one hand, they contribute to reveal the soul and intention of the portrait persons. 2, on the other hand, they tend to interact with each other, creating a total that transcends somehow the sum, as counterparts of a compositional harmony and balance in volume, perspective, in color. Furthermore, Vermeer's use of symbols in many of these paintings somehow encourages us to assume that behind this conceptual structure even deeper layers exist, possibly at service of a strong ethical intent. How interesting. This aspect will be further explored in my forthcoming second article and video about Vermeer. In conclusion, in Vermeer's work it's possible to consider the color autonomous from the form, as affirmed by Piet Mondrian approximately 250 years later. And Vermeer seems to assign a specific role to each of the 3 primary colors seen as a different person's quality. In my forthcoming second article and video about Vermeer, the bond between Vermeer and Mondrian, despite their evident distance in time, will inevitably become deeper. And the so far never officially demonstrated link between Johannes Vermeer and Pieter de Hoek will become even stronger. If you'd like to send me your feedback, I will be happy to receive it on the email address here on the description. And I thank you very much for your attention.